do this.
All right, we are recording. So
Excellent.
the whole purpose of this call or this webinar, guys, as I saw it when I scheduled this, was to kind of go through the reporting, kind of like a, for some of you, maybe like some of the new people, a crash course into it. Or for most of us, it'll be just a revisiting, hey, John Hahn, a chance to revisit the reports and just get re-familiar. And I wanted to walk you guys through it on how I analyze the reports, what I look for.
And upper monkey branches of the lake. The algae can cause skin irritation, and if water with the algae present is ingested.
I think it's John.
Thanks, John. Anyway, so just to go through the reports and again, show you guys what I look for, and just to kind of that symptom cause solution approach to, hey, this is off. You know, this is a symptom of something going on in the practice. What's the actual cause? And then we can, you know, offer solutions to that to fix it once and for all. So that was my thought process. And then I kind of want to open it up to you guys for any questions you have on the reports. And then kind of leave it open forum to kind of go through any challenges from a numbers perspective that Mark and myself can answer. You know, Mark, from a practicing dentist, he's been behind the chair a lot, so he has a lot of fresh insight. And then for myself, obviously, I'm in this all day long. So that's kind of how I saw this going. And yeah, nothing super formal, but let's just, let me get into this here, and I'll share my screen with you guys so you can look at the reports with me. Okay, can you guys see that okay?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right, so as you guys know, this is so you guys get a series of reports every single month, and this is the first report in that series. We call it the overview report. And it is exactly that. It's kind of an overview of what happened in the month, and you can look at year-to-date trends versus last year, you know, hygiene at a glance, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to run through these guys, and just stop me if you have any questions. Just interrupt me, please, and I can answer any questions. But I'll start with the top section here, which you guys are very familiar with, I hope, which is a production and collection section. So we do have your gross production there, your adjustments, your net production, obviously so on and so forth, down to collection percentage. You have current month, previous month column, current year to date here, and then last year to date. So this, guys, here's what I look at, a few things at a glance. So obviously with COVID, this is a fresh report through June. With COVID, we're gonna see a ton of red here. You know, a lot of ground to make up the last half of this year. But I look at the net production number, item line, and as you can see, in this case, we're down 40%, which we know why. Collection dollar amount is down 36%, again, we know why. But I also look at the adjustments. And if adjustments start to, you know, increase in a considerable amount, I start to question why. Is it the fact that our gross production is up? Is it the fact that we had a ton of write-off? Are we cleaning up AR? So again, that's one of those symptoms of something that either that we did, something that's happening in the practice, and you know, something that we can take a look at further. So that's, again, something that I look at a glance to see kind of what's going on from a production, adjustment, and collection standpoint. Also here, if you see growth, you know, from the flip side, if we're seeing growth of, you know, 10, 12, whatever, 20%, whatever it is, you will see that on this variance column, just as you are seeing this with the negative here. But if we're seeing growth, we want to kind of look back to see why, you know, what was working great, you know, what was working better in practice. What did we do differently? Were we doing anything that we weren't doing previously? What can we duplicate? You know, again, just to look into that to see how can we double down on what's working in the practice. So again, just another element to look at and another way to analyze this report. Any questions on that section? No? Okay, good. So the next part of this report, for some of you pedo guys like you, Scott Seiler, what's up, buddy? You guys won't have this because obviously no hygiene, but for most of you general, or for most of us, the general guys, you will have this section. This is all pretty straightforward, I feel like. As you guys know, our target's 3.3. Current year to date is numbers are here, last year to date, and then variance. So again, similarly to the top section, I look at some high level things like is the hygiene department growing? Is that correlating to the net production growth in the practice? Because a lot of times I see, guys, if the hygiene department is stagnant and overall growth is happening, it's reliant on the doctor a lot at that point, right? So again, just another way you can start to analyze these reports. If it's the opposite of that, where hygiene is growing immensely, but net production in the office isn't seeing that much growth, we could potentially have a doctor, deficiency. Again, one of those symptoms that could be offering a cause, and then we could also look at that to offer a solution. So again, one more element to look at as you're analyzing these. Now, I also want to point out this target percentage, this 14% here. That's year-to-date target based on current numbers. And I changed that this year, we did, I should say. And what that represents is what percent would hygiene have to be of overall office revenue for them to get to 3.3 times their pay consistently. So as you can see, that's only 14%. So in this case, like, it could be a factor of underproducing per patient for the hygienist. It could be a factor of, not blocking for perio. Again, these are symptoms of something going on, because in a multi-doc office, as you guys know, our target percentage should be between 25 to 27% of hygiene production. Lower if you're like a huge specialty office, and then of course in a single doc at 28 to 30%. Again, another indicator. So if we start to see that hygiene production percentage on the rise and the targets start to rise, for instance, if our hygiene target is 35% of overall office production, that means that we need to increase our doctor production to keep up with that. Does that make sense, guys, as far as the targeting and then the percentages versus the amount of doctors in the office?
Can you rewind really quick, Jake? I mean, you lost me for a second there. The 14% corresponding to 3.3, is that regardless of the number of hygienists that you have?
Well, that's a great question, Mark. That could mean that we need more hygiene hours.
Webinar that I signed on.
We could need more hygiene hours to keep up with the demand in doctor production, that sort of thing. So again, if that target amount is lower, that means that we could probably use either hygiene needs a boost in some way, right? It's in some fashion. So again, that's a symptom. If that target percentage is super high based on the numbers of the practice of hygiene percentage, then that means that we could probably use some work on the doctor side, because once hygiene is, producing 3.3 times their pay and they increase their production to become a true profit center, that means we're entering to the danger zone where hygiene is outproducing the doc per se, and then we need to look at the doctor side. So those kind of correlate together. Mark, does that clear that up?
Yeah, it helps.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, so that's the hygiene section. Do we have questions on that part of the report? No? Okay. The second half of the report here, we get into again, just high level expenses based on what phase you're on, or what phase you're in rather. And again, these are all pretty straightforward. As you guys know, we have our two buckets of expenses, or two buckets of overhead, which is operating expenses, so all expenses outside of payroll, and then your true payroll expense. As you can see, this is only $6,700 this month in payroll expense, because this is a PPP month, which I'll explain when we get on the scorecard and what our methodology there is. But any normal month, you will see dollar amount, high level for each of these expense item lines, the target amount. As you can see, operating expenses, the target amount is 114 versus 137 versus payroll. This is a phase 2 practice. So as you guys know, 25% is what we shoot for on the 25% is what we shoot for in the operating expenses versus payroll, right? Because payroll still is at 30% in phase 2. So that is how that works. Again, I think it's all pretty straightforward. Do you guys have any questions on that? Great. Below that, you guys can see it's the profit versus actual versus target. Again, this is all based on phase 2. In this case, it was a massively profitable month because of the PPP lending. So all this is kind of skewed, but again, it gives you an idea of what to look for, what we're looking at. And then of course, below that, you guys know we include debt service to show you what we call available funds here, which is the true take-home cash to you. So again, high level look at the practice. Again, this is the overview report. Well, I guess one thing I can point out, this AR up here, the top right, I got some questions on that. And that's basically year-to-date AR. So if you can look to see, current collection percentage here is 103% for the year. You guys see that, 103? That correlates to the AR because, you know, we're ahead in collection. So if that AR starts to build and rise, that will directly correlate to your collection percentage. And that just shows you, you know, what's left on the table any given point in the year. So that's, again, that was our thought process when we added that. You guys are familiar with this. This is just a graphical summary of what we just talked about on the overview when it comes to overhead and profit. Breaks down all those expenses in a nice graph form. So at a quick glance, you can see, okay, what do we bring home this month? So that is that. Any questions on the overview report before we move on into the scorecard?
If you were gonna create a belt level or a phase level for accounts receivable, I know it's hard to do because there's lots of different types of practices out there. There's blend, there's fee for service, there's Medicaid, there's specialty, et cetera. But what you've been seeing for the more sophisticated businesses out there, what percentage of our overall AR are you seeing?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's a ratio, and Mark, you know this. Typically, 1 to 1.5 times your average monthly collection is a good kind of AR, because we do want a bit of AR to pull from, right? It's when that you guys have experienced during COVID, the AR dried up because we had no collection or no production. So we, you know, basically exhausted all of our AR. We had a big production month in June, and most of you had a significantly lower collection month because of that. So with that arithmetic or that thought process, 1 to 1.5 times your average monthly collection is a good healthy AR. And when you break that down by the aging, meaning 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, so on and so forth, we want to see 80% sitting in 0 to 60, right? So 80% of AR in 0 to 60. That means we're collecting under 45 days on average collection. Again, that's another healthy target to shoot for. 45 days or under on average days to collect on production. 60 to 90, we shoot for 8%. And then 90 plus, we shoot for 12. That sounds a little counterintuitive, but there are, like, to some of your points there, Mark, if you're a bigger practice and have big, you run bigger cases, you may have not issues, but you may have a longer timeline to collect on these bigger cases because of, documentation, what have you. And sometimes it just slips through the cracks. Like, that's going to happen. 90 days is relatively short window when it comes to, making sure we have all collection in. So that's why that 12% is higher in that middle section. Does that make sense?
And there's a significant number of people that, excuse me, do long-term cases, like you were saying, that last longer than 90 days, that are paying regularly, but extends out longer than 90 days for, a full mouth rehab or an Invisalign case. That's gonna spike your 90 plus, but
Right.
Most of that's good debt. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. On that, and if you guys do ortho, I was talking to a coach today about that day actually. Anyway, if you do ortho, it's wise to break that out from your general production AR, just so you can see what that looks like, because as you guys know, ortho it's a total different ballgame when it comes to AR. So if you do offer ortho, or it's a big piece of your practice, I would separate that out. You can do that in open dental.
How do you separate it out? Just
Sam, I'm not an open. Do you have open dental, or what do you have, Sam?
Dentrix.
Dentrix? Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, unless we have some gurus on Dentrix, I don't know specifically, but I just know that there is a way to do that. I would call Dentrix. I would have Carmen or somebody call them and see if you can get that broken out. Because, again, that is a good thing to look at separately for sure. Okay. Mark, do you agree with that?
I do. We currently don't do that, but it's not a bad idea. I'm trying to visualize how that would work. Right now, the way that we handle the compensation is we subtract out the lab fee from the case total. So If it's a $5,000 case, then the doctor gets $3,200 worth of production, but they get paid 30% of their production as the payments come in. So if it's $1,000 down payment, they get credit for, they get $300 because it's 30% of 1,000. And if they have $200 a month payments, then they get compensated $60 a month because it's 30% of the $200 payment as going on. But I don't know how to do it in open dental as far as separating out the production though.
Let's ask Michael. I bet he knows.
Okay, yeah, that's a really, if we could do that, that would be pretty slick.
Yeah, I know that Summer does that.
Okay.
We tried it a couple ways, but we found with Open Dental, the easiest way was just to keep a spreadsheet of our ortho cases and then manually subtract the totals. Because, I mean, if we find that out, that would be great because I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from that knowledge.
No doubt.
Yeah, there's got to be a way. And if there's not, we can, I mean, we all kind of understand the concept. We could create a query and have Michael or somebody present it to Open Dental and they'd create it for us.
Exactly. Yeah, we can have exactly, Mark, because it's open source. We can have them create anything we want, basically. So
I like that. I like the concept though a lot. Actually, that's something that I've always scratched my head about for tracking production. Okay, yeah, the old-fashioned way is kind of how we do it, like Dan does. But I'd love to have it in the software.
Let's solve that. Let's solve that for the group, and we'll have it as a resource. All the open dental. Even you, Sam, we can work with Dentrix on that. And if you don't mind, if you have any solutions for that, let us know, and we can have the Dentrix users jump on board with that as well.
Yeah, I will. Hey, you mentioned one thing about the 1 to 1.5 times monthly collections. It's not monthly net production.
No, yeah. So that's a good question, Sam. Because of the ebbs and flows of collection, because it's revenue versus revenue, basically, because AR, you're drawing revenue. We should compare apples to apples, because your net production could be sky high, but but if your collection is low, let's say the collection issue, then we want to know what AR is in relation to that, because that's what truly is driving our AR itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, sure, no problem. Okay, cool. So moving on, let's go on to the scorecard, which I think you guys are probably most familiar with this, revamped last year. So I think you guys are familiar and know all of these stats here: new patients down to hygiene production, the overhead, associate salaries if there's associates, owner distribution, profit, available funds. Again, just another representation of what was on this report, but again, everything in one location as we move through these reports so you can compare, reminder, and that sort of thing. So this, again, you guys are familiar with this. The top right section, variable cost versus fixed. Do you guys know how we classify fixed versus variable? And if you don't, I can absolutely post that or give it to you guys so you can see exactly which categories are going to each, the variable bucket and then the fixed bucket, because some of them aren't as obvious. So maybe I'll just do that. I'll just post it and give you guys a rundown of how we actually allocate variable versus fixed so you guys can get an idea. But this is a breakdown. So again, what I look at here, guys, is, again, this is a weird month, and I'll go through the PPP funds. I think most of you know how we're handling, but I'll do a recap. But and then when I look at this, obviously I look at these higher level numbers, collection percentage, debt service, available funds, all that. But I also look at fixed variable versus cost percentages, because that gives us an idea of what's driving our overhead. So, if our overhead's consistently at 65 to 70% or whatever, and we're struggling to get to phase 1 or phase 2 or whatever, we can look to that to say, okay, our variable cost is way out of whack. It's way outweighing our fixed cost. We have a spending issue, or, we have maybe it's a collection issue where collections are lagging or what have you. Again, more of a symptom. That's a symptom of something. So let's figure out what the cause is and solve it. If it's a fixed cost issue, and dental supplies, your lab, advertising, all those variable costs are in line. Maybe it's a payroll issue. Maybe hygiene isn't producing 3.3 times their pay. Maybe we have a facility equipment issue where we just have to basically increase our efficiency, production, and collection to offset those fixed costs, because you guys know the the methodologies or the strategies there when it comes to variable versus fixed. So again, I take a look at that to see what's driving. Now, real quick, I just wanted to make this clear for those of us attending, and when we record this, you guys can revisit this. For the months of May and June, it kind of lined up nicely where we had, June as our cutoff, which we have the next 6 months of the year to focus on rebuilding data, revisiting some opportunities, reestablishing our goals and benchmarks. But for month of May and June, we excluded payroll, rents, and utilities if you had the PPP, which I think about 95% of us had it. So that's why we did that, to truly show what the financial impact and really what this number is, the available funds, how much liquidity and cash are we building? What was the financial impact from that? Because prior to COVID, we had our huge spikes of like 100, I've seen 200% overhead because of the shutdown. So it's a way to kind of balance that a little bit as well for the year. And again, to show the financial impact from this free money that we were given. So that was our thought process there. But again, in July, we're starting back business as usual, and we're starting to rebuild some new data post-COVID, which will be kind of cool to see. So,
hey, Jake, like trend-wise, is there like a benchmark we should be shooting for as far as, variable expenses versus fixed expenses? Like a hard, fast number, or are we kind of going to rely on the categorization?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Mark, and I've thought about that too. But for trend, I've tried to trend spot that, and it's so all over the place. It's really dependent on what the practice needs are and what the what's driving that. I've seen this exact scenario in a normal month where variable cost was 24% for the year. So there was some massive overspending going on, and maybe they weren't paying self-rent because they own the building or whatever. But yeah, I've tried to trend spot that, and maybe I just need more time and data, but I don't have any hard, fast numbers on that just yet.
I think maybe what we do is we add up all the categories for fixed, and then add up all the categories for variable. So we're going to have some number, like there will be some ideal number to add up all the variable cost categories and then all the fixed cost categories. And then we can average out within ranges. If you're black belt level, you would be within this range for fixed cost total.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, I like ranges because I think that you have to have ranges because just one number would be kind of irresponsible because it wouldn't make much sense.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
But no, I like that. Yeah, ranges.
I hope I'm not derailing you, dude. I'm just kind of looking at these reports and I'm coming up with some ideas here.
No, that's perfect. I love it. I'm always, and guys, I want to leave this open to you guys as well. Like if you, like Mark was doing, if we're pointing out things and want to see something new, changed, tweaked, improved, like I am all open for that criticism. And I would welcome you guys to reach out to me if you want to see something. I always say that it's not custom practice analytics for anything because we can make this complete custom. This is just kind of how we've seen over the years be the most useful. But like I said, if we want to tweak these things and get them even more sophisticated, please let me know. So I just want to make that known. Any questions on the scorecard and how this all works? And again, I know this is pretty straightforward stuff and you guys are used to it. Okay, so moving down, you guys know this as well. This is the year-to-date scorecard. This was Mark's brilliant idea this year to have the month scorecard, and you can quickly cross-compare it to the year-to-date scorecard. So again, it's just a mirror image of the month scorecard, but again, year-to-date information. So all the same information, all the same stuff. As you can see, fixed cost is driving overhead here. We can see the front and back office is a bit over budget. Total payroll because of that is a bit over budget. Some of these fixed costs of facility equipment, telephone, internet, that sort of thing. So again, these are all the expense item lines that are driving this fixed cost. So we can see in this case, really probably to get to 55% or lower for the year. Again, that COVID happened and all that mess. But if we were looking at this as a normal month, I'd say that our biggest opportunity is to increase our efficiency, production and collection. Collection percent is at 103, so it's not a collection issue. But it's an opportunity for us to, again, drive our overhead down by increasing our production and collection through efficiencies. Maybe it's hygiene, that sort of thing. as you notice that if we look up here, hygiene is only producing 2.6 times pay. So that's an indicator of something going on. So again, that's one way to, again, symptom, cause, solution approach here. Again, this is the stuff that I look at when I'm analyzing you guys every single month. So again, that's one thing that I look for. EBITDA number, projected EBITDA. So I get questions on this as well. This is projected, and it is a generalization per se, because we're not taking 30% off of that from the owner production. It is straight, basically net income. And again, that's including all the add backs, what we do every single month. Your distributions, you guys will see inflated sometimes because you run, you have children on your payroll, or you run travel, or all these tax deductions that you guys do, you run through the business. But again, as you guys know, we pull that out. So that's included in that EBITDA number. And that is basically what we can anticipate as that number. But again, as you guys know, or maybe not know, we do take 30% of the owning doctor's production and deduct that from that to get a true EBITDA number in the dental world. And Addison knows a lot about that as well. So again, that's
30% of that number, or 30% of the production?
Of the net production, right? So Sam, let's say that your EBITDA is 600,000 and you produced $1 million that year. We're going to take 300,000 and deduct that from that EBITDA number. So you're left with 300,000 as your adjusted EBITDA number. Because, and this is where, Mark and I talk about this briefly, but this is where Hygiene and Associates, having it driven by Hygiene and Associates, if you're, a multi-doc office, or if you have a satellite office, that's where having Hygiene, Healthy, and Associate-driven practice is so beneficial, because that EBITDA number is going to be pretty true to what you're reflecting. It's not reliant on your two hands, on the goodwill of the practice per se. So that's why, again, that's kind of how that all plays into EBITDA in the dental world. Mark, do you have anything that I know that you're immersed in that a lot?
No, that's right on. That's
okay.
How would you use it? And maybe this would be a consultation call, but how do you use that number then for the value of the practice? If in my case, I've got an associate, we're going to start talking buy-in by January 1 or so.
Right.
The typical valuation is going to be some factor, and it's changed drastically.
Yeah.
Just over the last few months. That factor is going to be anywhere. I'm going to say, geez, it's so hard to say right now. I just got an offer on one of my practices at 4.7 times EBITDA. So I'm going to say anywhere from like 3.5 to 6.5, depending on the type of practice that you have. And that factor goes up with the amount of EBITDA. So you're talking 5, 6, 7 times if you have an EBITDA over $1 million. If your EBITDA is around 300,000 to 500,000, you're looking at between 3.5 and 5 times EBITDA. But then there's also, the old-fashioned way, which I would say the majority of valuations on private sales is some factor, some percentage of gross revenue still.
Yep, I agree. I think it's going to go more. I think it's going to lean more towards that as we move through this next few, whatever years or whatever. Don't you think, Mark?
I can't even.
Hard to say,
I can't even speculate. It's very hard for me to tell what's going on. That the numbers are all over the place now. What DSOs, just in the last 2 months, I've seen this. What DSOs used to pay 7 or 8x for, they're paying 3 to 4.5 for. It's
right.
Very interesting.
Didn't it used to be like 80% of the average prior 3-year collections or something like that?
Yeah, it's dependent. It's dependent upon the region, but yeah, it's anywhere from 65 to 80.
So Sam, in your case, like we've talked about briefly on our coaching calls, and this applies to anybody who's looking at partnership, buy-in, whatever. If it's a true cash event, meaning no sweat equity, no gifting, so on and so, no holding the note, whatever. Well, I guess you could do that in this instance as well, the holding the note. But as far as the valuation goes, you have a lot of control over that, right? So if you want to make it advantageous for both sides and you want to make it, quote unquote fair because it helped, grow the practice with you, whatever. And we've talked about this, Sam. You can control that valuation based on, 60%, 65% of gross revenue. We can take a multiple of EBITDA and average those out. What I've done in the past as far as valuation, and Mark, I think that we've talked about this, but as far as valuations, how I approach it is like a 3-tiered approach. I will look at the past 12 months collection, which that's a bank thing. They like to see that. I take the average of the last 3 years collection. That's another bank thing. And then I take a factor of EBITDA based on those factors that Mark talked about. So anywhere between 3 and upwards of 8, 9, sometimes 10, depending on the practice or whatever, or more. But again, between those 3 factors, we can kind of get an idea of what the averages look like when it comes to those 3 factored valuation pieces. And I'll tell you, a lot of times they drive pretty well. They're within, 5 to 8% of each other. So again, you can kind of look at that to get a more holistic approach or look at the health of the business from those factors. Again, overhead ties into that, trends, collection, like it's EBITDA, net income, all that ties in nicely. And again, you get kind of a wide rounded range of that gives you kind of a better idea of what to ask, what the asking price is.
What you can do, Sam, to get it really, really accurate, sometimes this makes the EBITDA look better. We just did this with Dr. Nicholas, is you take, say, the previous 12 months revenue, okay? And then you take the total production that came from all doctors, okay? And you divide that from the overall production, okay? So you're gonna get some percentage. So the first, we're gonna do this based on 3 numbers. The first number is payroll. The second number is fixed and variable expense. And the third number is that number of total production divided by just the doctor production. That's gonna be the third number. You add those 3 together, subtract it by 100, and that's gonna be your EBITDA. And your EBITDA is gonna probably be higher than the 30-30-30-10 situation because what the doctor is actually producing times 30% is actually gonna be less than 30% if it's an associate run practice, or if it will become an associate run practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What were the 3 things you averaged?
Okay, so for the first one is payroll. The second one is fixed and variable expense, and the third number is the total doctor production, no matter how many doctors there are, times 30%.
Okay.
Subtract that by the number by the total revenue of the practice. That's going to give you some number.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping that's going to be, in the mid 20s. So then your EBITDA is going to be higher than it would have been if we just used the 30-30-30-10 rough.
Okay. Yeah.
Number.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And a good exercise that we've done, Mark, is going through your P&L. So if there's anybody looking to evaluate their own practice or want to know the process, go through your P&L from the previous year and do what's called add backs and normalize the P&L. We talk about that, right? So you go through and consulting, that goes down to net income, because that's a discretionary cost, right? So anything that you have direct control over, discretion over, that's going to be added back because the next owner basically doesn't have to have that expense to run the business. That's the thought process. So
Totally.
if it's consulting, traveling, health insurance, if you had a big build out in the practice and you used cash to outfit a room or whatever, that is a what do they call it? It's some sort of event. I forget the name, the verbiage, but it's an event that you can actually add that back because, again, they won't have to do that again. That's not an expense that they'll be expecting in the future.
It's a one-time expense, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So, again, going through that process will really, really open your eyes to, the true value of your business. Mark and I've done that with his so many times.
Oh my God, we've done it with every business, not even the dental practices, but it's
Right.
it's so enlightening to be able to do like a really objective add back. Like, okay, this person's not going to have to buy subscriptions. They're not going to need to pay for my insurance. They're not going to have to pay for my car. They're not going to have to pay for my consulting fees.
Right.
This room addition, that's added back because they won't have to do it because I did it. So like doing a normalized, a business normalized P&L it's really enlightening as far as what your true EBITDA and value is.
we've found hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
It is.
Okay, let's go back to reports, guys, and then we will get into open Q&A, and then we'll wrap up. So again, scorecard, you guys know this. That's EBITDA. You guys know the score system. Like golf, lower the better. This is basically A, B, C, D, F, if you want to look at it that way. Again, I think we all know that. The next report, I like to look at a few things. Obviously, starting with the top right, those are all monthly averages through the year. Numbers, obviously, those all make sense. Percentages, so on and so forth. Monthly break even. We all know of the MBE, but I'll revisit that. It's basically, well, it is exactly the overhead plus associate plus debt service. So that basically comprises that $333,000 you guys are seeing there. I have seen, like I've mentioned in the past, I've seen owning doctors include their W-2 or even like their average draws per month to account for that. So if that's something you want to do, again, we can include that so you can get a true account of like, if what's my true break even for me to take my, what I need to take home as well. So I can see, I've seen it done both ways. So again, that's how we look at monthly break even. Scrolling down, again, just a graph representation of the expenses in the practice. Again, a lot of us are visually driven, so we wanted to include that. And then below you see this, what looks like a mini scorecard. Now this is valuable information to me, guys, because for a few reasons. For one, we can look at these salaries here. Again, we're over by $16,000. That, again, this is COVID year, so that probably has a lot to do with that because of some April and March and April overages, so on and so forth. So again, that's a symptom. We know the cause. Moving forward, we hope to see that come down with time as we normalize and stabilize the practice, right? So again, that's something we pay attention to. But I want to point out here is the average target column, right? That average target is your budget, basically, based on what phase you're in. So that dollar amounts, for instance, payroll, the budget here is $108,000 per month. We're spending almost 116. If you look to the left there, the average monthly target, or the monthly average dollar amount, which is 32%, which we're over $7,700, right? So again, like dental supplies, for instance, look, we're spending $15,000 here a month. Our averages, our average target, which is our budget, is $18,000. We're under there. So again, when you're sharing budgets with your team, every 3 months you guys can revisit this to see what the new budget has either dropped to, increased to, and that sort of thing. So again, that's something I look at. Now, one thing I want to point out specifically is hygiene. So in this case, hygiene is under budget, right? But I want to point something out that maybe I should have used a better example, but if hygiene salaries are over that 9%, and we see them over budget consistently every month on average by whatever it is, we can then look to the score or the overview report, the first report, to see what their hygiene is looking like as a profit center. In this case, they're at 2.6 times their pay, but they're massively underproducing. So again, this could be an issue where we need more hygiene hours, we need more hygiene time to bolster that production up. A lot of times I see guys where we see overages on the scorecard and on this report. I like this report because it lays it out nicer, I think. But a lot of times if we see hygiene salaries over budget, I will look directly to this number, production versus pay, to see if they're healthy. If they are producing 3.3, 3.5, and they're still over budget, then I look to the production percentage. And I can guarantee you it's probably high because the doctor production is lacking a little bit, right? So that means we could be doing too many periodic exams. Treatment acceptance could be low. We could need more doctor hours in general. Like, again, that's a symptom of something going on. We got to look at the causes and offer solutions. So that's some of the things I look at when I see red, basically, right? So that's, again, something I look at. Do you guys have any questions on the averages report here? I feel like it's all pretty straightforward, but do you guys have any thoughts there? Perfect. Okay, great. And then the trends report. This is all, like I said, this is all pretty straightforward stuff. We look at past 3 years for some of this information. production collection, all the trends there, new patients, hygiene production percentage. Again, this is something you can look at too, that I look at. A hygiene production percentage on a trend, if it continues to rise, that's an indication of, what's going on the doctor side. Again, more evidence of, follow the bouncing ball approach of like what's happening on the doctor side to allow hygiene production percentage to keep increasing. Or is it the fact that we were underproducing before, we had a more hygienist, and that's the reality of it. Again, just things you can look at and analyze as you're moving through the months here. Again, based on what phase you're in, these expense percentages versus the target, you can see the trends here with all these. And then overhead target as well. As you can see, it's based on phase 2. It's 55% overhead here. That's the target. That's the trends you can look at. And then, the year-to-date trends here as far as collection, overhead, profitability, available funds. I wanted to show you guys that just because you can see the ebbs and flows of the business. You can take a look back at this year and say, okay, what truly gave us that increase in our collection, our revenues, our profitability? What was it? Again, we can either, if there is a negative trend, we can look at that to look at that, moving in the next year, we can say, okay, let's prepare for that. September typically is a shitty month, so we can prepare for that type of thing. And so again, just giving you guys a little more ammunition and trends when we're heading into the second half of the year here, which again, weird start to the year, no doubt. But then we can use this as historical data as well. And then the bottom right, just a graphical representation of high-level things: collection, overhead, associate salary, compensation, profit, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to show you guys that to see, okay, how much cash are we accumulating this year based on everything that we're doing here, right? So that's a byproduct of all this going right: overhead low, collection percentage right, hygiene, all that stuff. So we want to see that available funds number ever increasing, of course, because that means we're being more efficient. So I guess the last thing I will point out here, guys, from a symptom cause solution approach, and I think Nate Tillman came on board here. Hey, Nate, how you doing, buddy? We actually had a pretty good conversation about this recently where, if we see a symptom, let's say it's hygiene, right, where they're not producing 3.3 times their pay, right? That's a symptom of something. So what Nate and I kind of went through, or what he went through rather in his time, is he kind of wrote down what are the possible causes for this. Is it scheduling? Is it hygiene hours? Is it the fact that we're not blocking for perio? Are new patients dragging? Are we booked out too far? Are we just doing bloody prophies and not coding correctly? Is it a combination of all that, right? So that one scenario is just, one take on that, but that could be applied to anything, right? I mean, if dental supplies are high, what are the possible causes? Are we bulk ordering? Do we have too much inventory on hand? Are we using too much, of the material when we're doing the actual procedures, right? The cost per procedure analysis is helpful there. Again, so that's, again, or do we have, too many people ordering? Should it flow through one person? That way there's not, too many hands in the cookie jar. So again, I wanted to drive that home because as you guys are moving through these reports, they're pretty to look at. I get it, they're nice, but I really want you guys to digest this stuff and look at this from more of an analyst perspective and say, okay, there's a symptom here. Let's use these numbers to, again, offer this a symptom, offer the possible causes, and let's find a solution to fix it once and for all and move on to the next opportunity or whatever the case may be, right? And also to make decisions, if we want to onboard more people, we feel like we're stifled up front, we can look to this, right? Our averages report to see, okay, are we under budget? Are we over budget? In this case, I bet we're underperforming just a bit because of, this is COVID report, but if this were a normal situation with overhead being, or payroll being high and hygiene being under, I would say that we probably are underperforming with the staff that we have. So we got to get more efficient. Now, if I've seen cases where payroll is under 15%, I'd say you probably need to listen to your team and onboard more people and support, having more infrastructure to support growth and the overall, volume of patient flow and so forth, call volume, so forth. So again, those are some of the things that I look for. I wanted to take this time to review. Some of you guys, when you watch this video, you guys will have a breakdown of the reporting and how to analyze these and digest this and not just have this come in your inbox, take a glance, and go on to production mode through your day. I really want you guys to use these to your advantage, basically, because that's what they're here for. So that's my spiel. I kind of want to open up for any questions, comments. Are there anything you guys want to bring up? We can even turn this into like a mini hot seat over the next 20 or 30 minutes here, and just have kind of open forum since there's not a lot of people here. So the floor is yours, guys, if you want to bring up anything at this time.
Let's read Daniel Cho's. It's Daniel Cohen and Daniel Cho. Okay, so Daniel Cohen says, Danny says, how should we account for ortho payment plans in AR considerations? I think we kind of already covered that. Daniel Cho said, maybe I missed it, but is there anywhere that shows the attrition rate?
Not on these reports, Dan, but if you have your divergent reports, that is, and I will show that to you right now. Most of us have divergent, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me, let me see if I can pull that up. Hey, let's move on with somebody else while I'm pulling this up. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything?
Yeah, I have a question if you don't mind.
Sure.
So we've taken a huge hit in our pedo space. So year over year, unfortunately, pedo for this past month is being totally flat, like exactly what it was last year. And we're a high growth practice. So I guess my question to you is like big picture, like how can we possibly base our historical performance on this year, and what should we wait for through this year to say that we're in a position where we can start really analyzing trends?
That's a great question. I get that a lot, Dan. And so from my perspective, I think that we have to really take advantage of this time because, I'm sure you guys are experiencing patient sentiment is pretty good, right? Some of us had our biggest months ever in June, right? So the numbers are kind of taking care of themselves for once. Again, this is unprecedented time. So I think, Dan, so this is a two-part answer, again, from my perspective, and I love other people to weigh in. But I think it's a matter of us being able to focus on the fundamentals of the business again. Since the numbers are there, patient volume's there, sentiment's good. I think it's a rare opportunity to go back and prepare ourselves for, tweaking our onboarding system. Looking at our patient experience, our mission, vision, core values, if that's, our morning huddles, our end of day, beginning of day downtime checklist, and let those foundational principles and those wins every single day, let production and collection be a byproduct of those efficiency things that we're tweaking and making better, and let that happen organically. So that's how I approach that. And the two parts of that, as far as when you asked how much time do we need to gather data, I mean, the next 3 months is kind of my window of, again, setting trends, looking at the new normal, and kind of taking consideration that we did just have some of our best months, and maybe even if it comes down to it, maybe even planning for a 10 or 15% decrease after this this hockey stick or this cantilever effect that I think is happening, not only in the economy but in businesses as well. We have this spike of revenue. Everybody has these checks, and people are accepting these big cases. I've heard people selling all this all-on-4s implants. People are paying cash, whatever. I do think there'll be a bit of a drop, so that's something we can plan for. But for now, like I said, make hay while the sun is shining. Take advantage of the situation. Let the numbers take care of themselves for once, ever, and focus on your fundamentals, the systems, your people, your culture, and redefine that stuff. Set expectation. So I think it's be well used your time to look at it from that perspective. Anybody else? Mark, do you have anything on that?
I'll just, follow that up with another question, I guess. So in other words, you're saying be patient over the next couple months so we can reset our baselines, basically, because, historical trends don't really mean much right now. And the reporting will have a greater meaning once once we've set a new baseline. But I think June is a good month to start it.
Yep.
June, July, August. So that 3-month stretch would be a good kind of slice of the year, setting new baselines there. And it's going to be interesting to see if things do flatten out. But even if they do flatten out, we have June that's setting the bar high for us to make sure that we're still trying to do our best to maintain that that higher standard.
Yep. And we have a ton of cash. Most of us do, right? Because of all this crazy shit that's happening. But no, that's a good question. Dan, did that answer it, or do you?
Yeah. No, that's great. And just one quick follow-up is just like at the end of the year, are we just going to like basically normalize against like 10 months of work, or, are we accounting for, I mean, it's maybe a little too early. I'm just out of curiosity. I mean,
The way they're doing it for practice valuations right now, Dan, and it might change by the end of the year, but they are just removing 2 months.
Okay.
So they're using 14 months minus those 2 as a historical analysis. That's what I've seen in the last 5 valuations that I've looked at.
And Dan, from our perspective, so you know how our reporting is, the reason why we did the PPP, exclusion on the scorecard was to account for those higher overhead months, to kind of balance it out, to kind of give us some semblance of what a normal year would look like possibly. So, as you said, time will tell, but I'm hoping that washes out basically, and we can focus. Really, the next focus is the last half of the year. That's how I'm viewing this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kyle says, Kyle Hale, hey, what's up, Kyle? He says, I'm taking what I can until the schools are back to normal. Yeah, for sure.
No doubt.
Sure.
I had a question on your scorecard.
Yeah, Scott.
Do you have a list of, like, when you have your other minor and other expenses, do you have a breakdown of what you're throwing into that?
I do. There's an allocation cheat sheet, I think, in the mastermind group. If it's not in there, Scott, let me know, and I'll shoot that over to you.
That's your regular breakdown, the sheet you've had forever. It's on there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
My other question, you always used to yell at me because I spent way too much on office supplies, because you're sliding all this shit through your office that's really for your house and all that, So I was listening to some podcast, somebody was talking, they said just get a whole separate credit card and still run all that shit through your business, but put it all on a separate credit card. So it's so easy when you're, not that I'm going to sell, but you can easily break that down. When I send you my numbers, can you take out a whole credit card off of the QuickBooks when you break down my numbers?
Yeah, I mean, we can look at because the QuickBooks will show the source, whether it's checking, credit card.
Or what account it is.
Yeah. So if you basically notate that and highlight, then let us know which credit card that is. We can absolutely take that out and allocate that to your distribution again to truly reflect the true overhead.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That's a really good idea.
New stereo for the office I just bought. You know what I mean? That kind of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, man, we can take that into consideration, no doubt.
Landscaping for your commercial building.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that at all.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan.
My brand new snowblower.
Hey, Dan, I wanted to show you your attrition. This is actually your score divergent report, as you can see. Here is your attrition right here. Oh, well, I highlighted it, but here's the attrition. So you can see more attrition's happening because of the shutdown. So possible opportunity for recall if we have room.
18 months. They do it based on 18 months in a day.
Right.
It's valuable to see the actual graph where you have the light blue bar and the dark blue bar. It's there you go.
It is, where is it? Right here. Yep. Another graph here, Dan, for you.
So dark blue is new patients, light blue is attrition. Dan.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Hi, Carmen.
Hi. I don't know if we talked about it already, but the 3 payrolls, there's 2 of them each year. And of course, July is going to be one of them. What do most people do to address that?
You can either, like Mark switched to bi-monthly, so he picked the 10th and the 25th, I think, as his pay cycles, to basically create a structure to avoid that. Or like we just have to record it as it happens. It's the true cash flow of the business. It's just reality. So either you, like I said, you can elect to go to bi-monthly, which, Mark, did you have pushback when you did that from your team?
Not really. honestly not. It was kind of administratively challenging, but I mean, within a couple pay periods, everything was back to normal. But we always say it's like, okay, so that your overhead's going to be artificially high for that particular month. We're all so type A. We're like, I failed this month. It's like, well, no, there's, you have to take that into account and then and take your quarterly look and look at the average to see, how you're truly performing.
Right.
But I'm so type A that I can't have a bad scorecard any month. So that's why I switched. Really.
Does that answer it, Carmen?
It does. I mean, we're really shooting for black belt, and I'm just curious too. Does that affect it if you didn't switch to now? It takes an average. Okay.
Yeah, it'll average out over the course of a year, or
Okay.
a course of 6 months even.
Yeah, and that's fine. If that's the case, then that's fine.
Okay.
So
Cool. Anything else out there, guys? Any numbers? Anything really? Do you guys have any struggles? Hey, there's Ben Dunham.
What's up, Ben? Anybody buying any practices or doing any mergers or big? Are you, Gina? What are you doing?
I close on a practice on, I think, next week, actually.
So for a merger or for a multiple location?
No, multiple location, and I'm purchasing the building with it.
Cool.
So anyway, but that probably won't close since COVID and everything. It won't close probably until mid-August or the end of August.
Was it a distressed seller?
We actually were going to close on April 31st. And then COVID hit. Well, we were originally going to close earlier, but then I kind of pushed it off. And then April 31st, and then I just waited. And then, and then he was actually just going to close the practice. And I tried to get him to come down on the price by about $20,000-$25,000 off the price of the practice, but he ended up coming down off the price of the building.
Oh, so, okay. That's good. That's actually good. That's a
yeah.
What was the lending process, Gina? Like, did you have to require more money down? You had got pre-approved and everything pre-COVID, but what was that like? Did anything change for you?
Nothing changed as far as the purchase for the practice. I think I really had to start the process almost not over again, but I had to kind of start with like my P&Ls and send them additional stuff over the last month that I was in. And then the practice owner had to send his information to the bank. And just, they wanted to see how COVID affected the both of us.
But no more money down. You have no more requirement no. Okay.
No.
Good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Keep us posted on that.
I'll definitely.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me schedule a call, Gina. We can dig into that.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Kyle says again, he's sent out merger letters yesterday. Fingers crossed.
You can't help yourself, Kyle. You just have to always do something, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jake. I want to give you something to complain about.
No, hey, I'm not complaining. If it works out, man, I hope it does. But you're always shaking and moving. Our last accountability was don't spend any more money, man.
Well, too late.
Well, I bought a house, so yeah, that's the best I could do.
I love it. That's awesome, man. Anastasia, how are you?
I'm good, Jake. Well, I got this practice at the worst time ever, I feel like. I closed in end of February and then COVID hit. So, but, hanging in there. June, like you said, was a good month for me, numbers-wise. So, yeah.
What's been your biggest struggle so far during this time? I know it, but let's see what you divulge here.
I just started working like 5 clinical days from morning till evening, and then after that doing the admin stuff, and it was just too much. So like you and I discussed on our last call, I just I had to scale back, and actually I did. So I took part of Wednesday off, and I closed Friday afternoon completely. Yeah, so that was helpful.
How does
Yeah.
it feel? Good?
You know, feels better. This is the first week I'm actually taking that time off, but I already feel the difference.
Great.
Like mentally, I do feel it.
Excellent. Good job. Way to execute. Anybody else out there? Yeah, Scott, what's up?
On that note, you know, in these charts, do you take account on hours worked per week kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like for me, the same thing. I've been jacking all mine down into trying to get my 4-day production to 3-day production and just making it more efficient, you know, adding an extra hour on maybe a day, but taking Thursday and Friday off. So I have room to expand onto this new spot, right? And all these numbers, do you have anything where you can say, okay, your production per hour per se, you know what I mean? So, hey, you're making the same amount of money, but you're only doing it in 3 days instead of 4. That's a hell of a lot better, you know?
Right. We don't have that on the reporting. We could definitely look to explore that. But that, for me, that's what one of those symptom cause solution approaches. So, you know, in Anastasia's case, for example, which this sounds counterintuitive, guys, and you may have experienced this yourself, but a lot of times when you condense your schedule, you actually will become more productive. So if, you know, given that whole, again, symptom cause solution, if we are looking at production trends, right, Scott, from like a high level 10,000 foot view, production trends, if we're increasing, if we're decreasing, are we flat, what's happening? We can start with, you know, the days worked. What are we producing per hour, and see what that looks like versus when you were working, you know, if you did cut back at one point, or if you increased hours, right? So I think that we let the production and collection drive that element, and then we can dig into that further and see what changed, what's consistent, and then did the change actually work out in your favor?
Yeah. It's an easy bit of arithmetic, Scott. I mean, it's production divided by number of hours per month at 4 days, and then versus 3. So you can get that X, that variable.
Right.
You can solve for that variable and know how much more you're gonna have to produce per hour based on what you've been averaging. But yeah, I mean, we see it over and over again. People are typically, most people are more productive over if they cut 1 day to a certain degree.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't anticipate you're going to take a huge dip in production, personal
No.
production anyway.
No.
Have you guys, this just like, this popped in my head, but have you guys gone through the exercise of establishing your personal break even since you've had some downtime here? Like down to the penny? No?
Yeah, it's a fun.
It's eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a fun exercise for sure.
Yeah, when Callie and I bought the house, that we had to do that since we were buying a jumbo home during COVID.
Yeah.
Was that, Kyle, what was that eye-opening to you, or did you anticipate it? Like, what was your biggest takeaway from that?
So between Scott at Ide Bailey and I, he prepared, I think, like, I don't know, 6 tax returns in 2 weeks, and then plus my personal tax return. And it was really eye-opening. Callie and I live a pretty simple life outside of the business. So there wasn't anything, you know, really that we thought, okay, well, we could have trimmed the fat there, we could have trimmed the fat here. But, you know, our personal debts are pretty simple. And I was really happy to see how simple it was, you know, especially compared to the business. The business was a monster to deal with. But the eye-opening part was how we're managing all of our liabilities decentralized and trying to bring the liabilities into a central kind of responsibility or accountability, which is something I tried to do pre-COVID. And then COVID hit and we lost 2 office managers. And so that's going to be one of my goals for the rest of the year, is to figure out how to control these liabilities, because, you know, 5 different rent checks, I mean, on top of all the other bills, equipment, and everything else. So making sure those don't get missed, making sure they're accounted for when we're doing payroll, to make sure there's enough money in the bank account and those kind of things. So.
Right.
Congratulations,
that's awesome.
man.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah,
Thanks.
it's pretty liberating when you figure out exactly how much you need to make your personal break even. But I mean, we did this exercise at one of the mastermind meetings because we were trying to figure out what your allocation accounts should look like exactly, if you decide to have 3, 4, or 6 months of liquidity, so that you don't have to feel bad about taking your liquidity and using it for whatever else, as long as you're funding your retirement account simultaneously. But yeah, it is a very, very enlightening exercise to do. So I recommend it for everybody, even if it takes you a couple months to figure it out.
I think I'm going to create a
worksheet,
like a form for that. So stay tuned. I think that's going to be one of the next things that we create is a personal break-even calculator, basically.
Yeah, and any of you guys that are into passive income streams like commercial real estate, multifamily real estate, even if you dabble in the stock market, it is fun to be able to figure out exactly what your monthly break even is, because then you have a goal of, now multiple practice ownership, whatever it happens to be, then you have a goal of once my passive income streams reach my monthly break even, then, that's the definition of financial freedom, when you don't have to do anything else because your businesses are actually paying for your lifestyle. So it's fun. It's fun to do.
Yeah. Anything else, guys? Any questions? You guys have any struggles you're dealing with, or anything we can help you through?
Well, I just had a question. I just have a patient in today, and he said that the dental. So we're in Jersey City, which is a pretty densely populated city. In our zip code, it's just like a mile by a mile, and there's 60 or 70,000 people. And there was a dental office that just was unresponsive. That's not far from me. So I am questioning if it's necessary to let's say, solicit that person and maybe buy charts, or if I should just, boost my marketing and take on the patients more passively. So what do you guys think about, using marketing to drive patients into the practice that are not being seen by other dentists versus actively soliciting these practices that might be struggling to acquire their patients?
I'm all for it if you structure the deal correctly. You have in a situation like that, you have to imagine that a huge percentage of the patient base is already into the wind. And the goodwill is evaporating daily for every phone call that's not answered and returned, and for every emergency exam that they're not accommodating. So if you're going to do something like that, that would be, kind of the definition of a fire sale. And you would only give credit for patients of his that would come in, or her, that would come in to the practice. And you, at this point, you can get a really good deal on those because they're looking at nothing.
Got it.
Gina, you've done this. What are your thoughts here?
Oh yeah, it definitely has brought more patients into my practice. And then let's see, I did it I think at the end of November last year, and then really we since COVID we slowed down, but we really could market. I have 700 names of patients that I could direct mail or whatever to contact, because he was in the process of, closing his doors anyway. And so, we probably have gained 50, maybe not quite 50, it seems like, of his new patients just in the last, 6 months or so, maybe give or take, maybe 40 to 50 patients, it seems like. So, so it's been a good revenue stream, I think. And I think we could dip in a little bit more. I did hire 2 associates. So one will be going back and forth with me to the new practice. And then one's going to be staying at the current practice, which is busy, the busiest of the 2. So,
Awesome.
So that,
one of them
finally associates. Yes.
I know. My daughter graduated, and she's been with me and just got her license in July. So now she's been doing exams and a little bit here and there. And I'm like, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? So, so it's been so nice.
So just to recap for Dan here, you bought the patient base, right, Gina? And then you marketed to them directly, and you're getting organically the new patients post shutdown.
post shutdown. So there were already patients fed directly to me that were on his schedule. So those patients directly came to me, and we just had to fit them in our schedule probably about the first month that he closed. And then we've only sent the one letter, and then I've gained patients just from the one letter. So I could go out and do more to seek more of those patients because they're just sitting out there right now.
Got it.
So, yeah. So I thought, I mean, it was a good option and it wasn't expensive. So.
Right.
Yeah. You can send out a mass text or a mass email based on a letter as well. That would totally automate the process.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it could even be, Medento could do it. You could even just plug in their cell phone numbers,
Mhm.
and you could just do something like, hey, this is Dr. Gina. I just wanted you to know that I'm your new dentist.
Yeah.
You know, I'm taking over for, you know, your old beloved dentist. I mean, it would take you 20 seconds to record that voice
Mhm.
message, and Medento or some other system could send it out, and then you could have a 3-2-1 where you did it in 1 week out, and then 2 weeks after that, and then 3 weeks after that.
Hey,
I
Gina,
think he
real
asked
quick.
about the pay. Yeah, I didn't see all of the message.
From Kyle, yeah, he said, Gina, did you pay a lump sum or a percent of production for the merger?
I broke it up into it will be a lump sum if the patients came. I gave him 10,000 down, and then it's 20,000 based on a percent of collections over the next 3 years. So I believe it's 20% the first year of collections over the 10,000 I've already paid, and then, or maybe 25%, and then it goes down to 20% the next 2 years after after the first 10 is paid. So
That's a cool structure.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a good structure because then if they don't come, then you're not bound to pay him more. So.
Right. That's awesome. What you got, Nate?
Oh, I've done kind of similar with a couple patient-based mergers where I paid for a certain number of patient records up front, like 20% of what they said their active patient base was. And then once we went above that number, I would sort of pay per patient that showed up for, we usually base it on if they came in for a hygiene treatment. Kind of that's what we counted as being established patient. And it's worked out well. And I have another one right now. I was talking about it last month. That guy down the street just sort of fell in my lap with, he's closing down and just has his patient base. And, but he's kind of moving slow, and I'm starting to worry about, how many of these patients are just going to be in the wind. But it's still, it's a really low purchase price. I am bringing on his hygienist for 2 days a week, and we have, basically two full days per week for her. So she's just bringing her her schedule right over. So I think that's going to help with bringing a decent number of people over.
That helps. The hygiene element or an associate element is huge.
Yeah.
Or even the front desk person, sometimes that works, but
yeah.
But that's a huge piece of it. Yeah.
It's funny with this hygienist, the seller's office, he is like super old school. He doesn't practice with an assistant. It's just him and his hygienist, no technology. And she's kind of freaking out about, even digital x-rays, digital charts. So I've been doing a lot of kind of hand holding and just, making sure that she understands that like, it's really, you're still cleaning teeth. You're still taking care of your own patients. It's just a different building, and we're going to teach you all the good stuff, and you're going to actually love it way more than where you were. So, yeah. But it's a lot of reassurance and trying to coach her into, it's not as scary as she thinks it is.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Hey, Dunhams, how are you guys doing? You guys still expanding and growing and doing all the awesome stuff you guys are?
There you go.
Oh yeah, we're doing pretty good. So let's go in the next room just because the kids are watching TV in here. Right now, what we're looking at doing is there's a big sort of group around, It's called like the Central Virginia Dental Alliance. That's like 65 practices that basically have formed a big PLC so they can negotiate with the dental insurance companies for higher reimbursements and dental provide or supply companies for lower prices. So we're thinking about doing that right now. We've got an associate going right now too, and that's been awesome. She's been there for like 2 weeks, so that's been great. And yeah, the big thing though is like, we're wondering, should we join this PLC? We're going to talk to you about it on Monday a lot there, Jake, actually.
Cool. Well, we'll save it for then, man.
Cool. Sounds good, man.
Awesome. All right, guys. Anything else? We have a few minutes here. If you guys open forum. Anything you guys want to chat about?
Cool. Thanks for doing this, Jake. That was great, man.
Yeah, no,
good stuff.
Thank you guys for attending. Like I said, it is custom practice analytics reporting. So again, if you guys are going through these and you want to see something different or tweaked or whatever, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or Mark or any of the coaches, and we can make it happen. So gosh, I greatly appreciate all you guys so much, and thank you guys for joining us here. You guys have made this COVID thing very bearable, so thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody's faces. I miss you all. Can't wait till we can be in the same room. My gosh.
No. I'm hugging all you. I don't care about COVID. I don't give a shit about that. Man, I'm kissing you, man.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Enjoy your families.
Thanks. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.